Good afternoon, everyone. This is a special meeting of the School Building Committee. Today is Thursday, December 29, 2022. Thanks for joining us. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of two sets of meeting minutes, one from December 8 and one from December 15. Tasha, just as a heads up, and for the committee, both of them actually on the minutes say December 8. So the actual December 8 minutes are the ones where the meeting was called to order at 4:07. Is there a motion to approve the December 8 minutes?
I would like to move that we accept those minutes, approve them.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? I see Rich's hand. So are there any other corrections? And all in favor of approving the December 8 minutes? Fine. Are there any opposed or abstentions? Okay, then the other minutes from December 15, they had the meeting called to order at 4 o'clock. Is there a motion to approve the December 15 minutes?
I would move that we approve those minutes as well.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Is there a second? Rich
Can I
again?
abstain?
Yes, you may.
There.
Are there any corrections before we actually vote on the December 15 minutes? Okay, seeing none, hearing none, all in favor of approving the December 15 minutes, please indicate.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Kathy Ward says she's in favor of both. She's
Okay,
texting.
thank you. And then Chris McNamara will abstain from the December 15 minutes. Okay. That brings us to an opportunity for public input. Is there anybody from the public that would like to address the committee? Seeing none, we'll move on for a brief update from contractor, architect, and OPM. So, Steve, we needs a microphone for you. You could sit up here too. Just press the button on the microphone. That's if it's green, if it's glowing green, it's on. So you want to give us an update on progress since our last meeting?
Yeah, I think everybody who's walked the building in the past couple of weeks has seen the progress of the building and where we're at. All life safety inspections have been conducted and have passed. We're just waiting for documentation, I believe, on the as for the fire pump. We don't physically have that paperwork, but a lot of the documentation that the building official wanted is now in his hands. Relative to life safety and systems operation, air and balancing reports, chlorination reports, generator load test, fire alarm, NFPA 72 reporting has all been provided to them. And so now it's just a matter of marching through his final inspections. We're buttoning up loose ends here and there, cleaning up details, patching and painting areas. You saw the progress with the gym. They intend on starting to sand the floors. Probably they're trying to get a crew assembled for Monday, but at least by Tuesday. So as that process continues, they would move to sealing the floors. At that point in time, we'll move in and get the apron done in front of the stage, get the stairs buttoned up. We've got to do a correction to the handrail going up to the stairs. The missing acoustical panels are substantially complete now. There's probably about 15 to 20 pieces that are not in, but there are 2 or 3 carpenters installing them. The change order work on the gym parapet has progressed. And
Steve, excuse me a second. You said that some panels are not in. Do you mean they're not on hand, or do you mean they're not installed?
they're not hung. They're on hand, but not hung.
Okay,
We verified that we have all the panels required to complete the work.
great.
Painter is following behind the panel installer to paint the panels. I think there's one classroom in Upper Beed not done, and you saw the cafeteria. And I think the music room there's one area that's got a couple, 3 panels not done. But the product is in hand. The 2 missing water heaters that showed up last week or late the week before are now installed. Startup is Monday. So they should be officially fired up with the control contractor on Monday. It could be as early as tomorrow, but let's say Monday or Tuesday of next week. So that missing component is now installed. We're debugging some of the hardware packages, making sure the doors are latching properly and things of that nature. Card reader system for the most part works. The cameras are online. We're just waiting for verification from Jamie from the Board of Ed. But we gave him the mapping last week and that's all done. Fusion systems are working. May require a little bit more debugging, but they're substantially complete. So we're moving to completion on the project.
So then when you walk the building, it's looking close to finished. The report from Calderon was fairly lengthy. What's the plan for wrapping up those items that are listed there, at least the ones that are necessary for CO?
We believe the ones that are necessary for CO are done. There's no showstoppers within that report. Ben and our mechanical contractor are diligently working as we speak to respond to that report. And as early as this evening or tomorrow, that report will be responded to in kind with our responses. And as I told Jeff in the walkthrough this afternoon, there's probably going to be a couple of items that we're going to sit and argue about, but it certainly doesn't affect form and function of the building. It's just an interpretation of the contract documents. But other than that, that report will be responded to. We did receive Taisu Kim's substantial completion package today, and in the field to have that responded to and acted on by Tuesday or Wednesday of next week, at least responding and tell what our intent are to complete those things.
Okay. Are there questions from anybody for Steve? Chris Kiefner? And then Chris.
I'd like to get whether from Richard might be the better source, although Steve probably has more current stuff. What kinds of things are on the architect's substantial completion, uncompleted list?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So we did do walkthroughs in December 14th, December 15th. And a lot of finishes were still in process. This on the 14th was the same day that I arrived on the site along with Randy. He was there. Peter was there.
I was also there. That's why I'm curious about sort of more current. What's
right
now.
So
Okay.
we have not visited since then.
Okay.
So at that time, my feeling was that the walkthrough was premature.
Mhm.
We were walking through with hard hats. There were workers still doing work, which we expected. I mean, the gymnasium we didn't expect to be done. We had to make a decision, or the committee had to make a decision about the gym floor, for example. But the similar things to what Al reported, in that some acoustic panels were not installed. There was painting that still needed to be required. Wainscot wall covering was not done at that time. I'm sure that things have progressed, but we have not visited the site since that visit mid-December.
We do have Jeff here, and Jeff was there today.
Yes, I
Maybe
asked Jeff to go because I knew that the district had representatives there, really to give some better understanding of what the current situation is. I know Peter is very eager to know what to tell the teachers and parents. So I believe that was one of the reasons for the walkthrough today. Going forward, we have to probably meet with Newfield, and I think the building official as well. I did have a conversation with the building official. There were several items that he was looking for, but it sounds like Al has been checking off on his list. He mentioned, for instance, the chlorination reports, which at the time I spoke with the building official, he hadn't seen, but it sounds like according to Al, that's been provided. So I think in order to jump to about the substantial completion date, we need to have a conversation with Newfield about several major things. One, are we issuing, for example, one certificate of substantial completion, or are we issuing two? Remember that in the beginning, when the contract was signed with Newfield, there were two dates given, one for the building to be completed, and then sometime after that, the site was to be completed. It's not unusual to have two certificates of substantial completion, one for the building and its occupancy, and the second one for the completion of the site. So we could take that strategy, but we need to have that conversation with Newfield. We also need to have an understanding among all parties, that's contractor, owner, and architect, about what the value is of the work remaining to be done. Now, at the time that we did the walkthrough in mid-December, I asked all our consultants to come up with a value for the work remaining, and their total is roughly $350,000. That's without any overhead. We should talk about that with Newfield as well. That total does not include any of the items that the architects have observed. The most complicated item is, or the most difficult item to assess in terms of value, are items that were deficiencies cited in Jeff's site visits. And some of them may be aesthetic, but nevertheless, if there are deviations from the contract documents, we should talk about what that value may be. So I'm not sure we're going to be able to settle that tonight, but I do think we need to have a meeting of the minds about what the value of those things are. We also need to have an understanding about when the final completion will occur. So substantial completion is at the point where occupancy is, the building is ready for occupancy. If we're talking about just the building, where the building is ready for occupancy. And part of the checklist or part of the closeout documents that we're expecting is occupancy permits that's specified in one of the sections of the spec. So that what that means is a CO. So that may mean a meeting not only with Newfield, but also with the building official to see if we can't come to a meeting of the minds about, is the building ready for a CO? That's one of the criteria for us to be able to release the certificate of substantial completion. So that's the building. As far as the site is concerned, we could issue a separate certificate for that, but there's a long list of items primarily from Richter and Segan, the landscape architects, totaling roughly $250,000 worth that will need to be done next year and probably be completed by May, according to Richter and Segan's estimate. So we need to come to an understanding about that, what the anticipated completion date is for final completion for the building and final completion for the site. So I'm glad that progress is being made. I know that when we did the walkthrough in mid-December, it just felt a little premature, but it's probably important to have another walkthrough at some point, and then have an understanding of these substantial condition factors. Cost of the remaining work. What should be the date? Is it 2 dates or is it 1 date? I'm open to having that discussion with Newfield, and then finally what the target is for completion of the project, both for the building and for the site.
Okay. Jeff, do you want to talk a little about? What you saw?
Yeah, if I may, Richard, Chris, just to continue your question, we did walk through today, myself, Ryan, Peter, and Randy. And overall, the building does feel like it's very close, okay? There's a few things we pointed out, but it looks like they're taking care of it, they're on it. My only concern is when I spoke to Craig Raza this morning, there's a number of items on his list. I just asked him frankly, do you think, what do you think? And he says, well, there's still some code violations he hasn't confirmed have been resolved. There are some operational items. The system has not been commissioned because I guess there's a whole commissioning for the whole system prior to occupancy, which I don't believe has been done yet. And on top of that, there are the building official comments. So I think those are the two biggest hurdles I see and I think that goes back to Steve here at Newfield to just make sure that those things, those major items are taken care of so we can go back through and just make sure that the building's going to work prior to this, getting the teachers and kids in there. Because I think the last thing anybody wants is things to leak or not work after the fact. So that's the only thing I like to say. But as far as the overall aesthetics, it looks like they have addressed a number of things inside. It looks good. The gym floor is down. They just have to finish it. So they've been working their, tail off to get things ready. So it's all the other stuff, the lungs, the arteries, all the mechanical stuff, life safety, all those things that we got to make sure are, taken care of.
Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, a couple of items. Functional commissioning is for the most part done. Final commissioning usually happens between substantial completion and final completion. It's not a predicate for substantial completion and/or certificate of occupancy. The site completion, the double dates, I don't understand that comment. There was a list of items for site work that couldn't be done because we encroached into winter. We spent a lot of time with planning and zoning walking through. Right now, we're securing a cash bond for the work remaining. So the site is substantially complete with an annotated list of things that are not done with dates. To Richard's point, the only thing that we think may move into summer is the replacement of the wood chips and the playing surface, because that's about a 3-week window. And we don't want to make a commitment during a 1-week break and think we can get it done, and we get some bad weather and can't get it done. So certainly we know for sure the final playground surfacing will be summertime. The rest of the work, I would concur, as soon as spring is here and we can make corrections in coordination with occupancy, whether it's weekends or whether it's long days off for the school. The plants that didn't get installed, we would plant those, and some of the other items that we talked about. The temporary shimming that we did at the handicap loading area, the ramp to the gym that we provided temporary egress for. I don't think we want to get into that work come the first or second week in January when we secure the trench drains. We would probably defer that to better weather. So I think as far as substantial completion, it should be one date. Because we do have a list that's been annotated by Richter Segan, by Fuss and O'Neill, that's been agreed to with the planning and zoning, to which we are providing an additional cash bond for. So I don't think we really need to have two separate comments relative to that. To Jeff's point and Kohler Ronan, all the life safety systems are operational. In fact, we forgot to turn off the fire alarm this morning, and the fire companies rolled. We had the fire department there this morning. We had to reestablish protocol of turning off the fire alarm system, but it's to their control center so they know it's rolling. And I think Al from BOE actually called Brad and says, hey, the fire department's coming. So life safety systems are working. Review the Kohler Ronan report, and I spent the greater part of today reviewing it. And we'll respond to that report. We disagree strongly with the fact that there are code violations those code violations in our interpretation are inherent in the design of the project. And we want to make a point of that. We could certainly have the discussion on how best we handle those issues. And we will certainly sit down in the best interest of the town to handle them properly. But we're not going to sit back and listen and say that there are violations caused by the contract or the contractors. I want to be clear to that. I spent 6 hours today going through that report with the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing contractor and our project engineer, reviewing the specs, reviewing the submittals, responding to each and every item. And like I said, that report will be responded to probably tomorrow, either later today or tomorrow.
Okay.
Again, without going too further into this, I did receive today, I think Colliers did as well, a commissioning observation report from CES that lists a number of lighting control issues, lights that don't work, teachers' workroom switch not working, cracked lenses, broken switch. There's a number of classrooms and other rooms where there are issues with the lighting controls.
Yeah,
And some
and
MEP
relative to the
issues.
lighting control issues, there's supply chain parts and pieces missing. That's been documented through the prosecution of this work. We're still waiting for those parts and pieces. But to fulfill the contract obligation, you have a functional building where lights work. If there's a broken lens, it'll be replaced. We're not going to ignore any of that. So we've overrid some lighting controls to make the lighting system work until those parts and pieces come. And if you ask me when we're going to get them, we have no idea. But they're trickling in. As they come in, we replace them. But for the most part, the lighting package is substantially complete.
Okay, and I assume you got a copy of that report from
Yeah.
CES, okay? Chris McNamara, sorry, ignored you for a long time.
No, no problem. Thank you very much. I'm curious to see if the FF&E dates are staying the same as what was told to us a couple of meetings ago. And then the restaging of the FF&E in the cafeteria area, is that what the plan is? That's one part of my question. So I'll wait for that answer. And then I have a second part.
Are you expecting the gym to be completed by January 9?
We expect the gym to be completed by January 9th. That's what we've tasked the subcontractor for. Deck the floor to allow the FF&E to show up. If we're not done, I think it was all agreed that the cafeteria can be a staging area, but we certainly expect to have the gym done.
That's the
Well,
stages.
Yeah, because part of my
That
question
would
is,
include stage.
it was coming in 3 sections, the FF&E, and I know, it's a good month plus before everything will be assembled and installed in the proper location. So even with the best of intentions, we weren't going to have the furniture and the spaces able to be utilized until the beginning of February, right?
Maybe we'll let Adam speak to that.
Just to jump in here. So Steve's assessment of the floor versus the cafeteria, that's correct. That aligns with the plan for installation and having sort of a belts and suspenders approach there.
Sounds awful.
So insofar as the delivery of materials, they're still targeted to schedule on January 9th. We had to conduct a good kickoff meeting. I think it was on the 15th as well, with Susan from Richard's office and Joe and myself and the various vendors. It's scheduled to occur over a 3-week period. The individual classrooms, which are largely complete, already have the floors cleaned and the door locks installed. So if you were to walk through the site, 90% of the rooms are already locked. And so workers aren't going in and out of them on a daily basis. So regardless of the outstanding punch list items and code reviews and things of that nature, the schedule is still for the furniture to be delivered and installed over that period. Now, obviously, there might be some delays or shifts if there's a massive snowstorm in the middle of January or something to that effect that might compromise the bringing in of furniture when it's got a couple of feet of snow outside or something. But otherwise, that's still the schedule, and there's a good means and process to do that, even if the building doesn't have its certificate of occupancy yet.
Okay, and the other part of my question, Randy, if I might, is that okay?
Sure, go ahead.
Was on the pictures that I saw in Collier's report, it looked like the asphalt on the trike path in some sections really had nothing underneath it. It was just kind of floating a little bit, or whatever the base had been might have been washed away, especially on some of the curves. So I was concerned about that and the integrity of those trike paths. And then the asphalt patches on the bus loop looked like they were done with a pitchfork. It's very uneven and very bumpy and doesn't have a finished look to it at all. And I'm sure that has something to do with, how the weather has changed, and when you're doing patching after you've done a run of asphalt, it always is going to look a little different, but parts of it look very choppy.
Let Steve talk about the asphalt here.
Asphalt patches that you see were some bird bats that were identified by planning and zoning. And in the handicapped parking spot, the loading area was beyond ADA requirements. So I don't disagree with you. Those patches are not the best. They were done to accommodate planning and zoning to get their sign off. They will be squared up, cut out, and replaced when the timing is right to do that. I think there's maybe 3 or 4 spots in the main parking lot, a couple spots in the bus loop, the handicap spot, and as you enter that loop road heading towards the pond, there's another spot there. And again, that was really to address the P and Z needs. Again, their protocol is, if assuming the building's going to be occupied, we need to have ADA compliance.
So those are temporary patches.
They're
that would
temporary
be-
patches that meet ADA compliance. They're not the prettiest, but they'll be replaced in the spring or when we're able to get it done.
And what about the trike path?
The trike path I watched that work go in. It was based properly and installed. I'm not sure what you may be looking at. Maybe, I don't think they've backfilled the topsoil along it. So maybe you're seeing kind of a deep edge along the edge, but you're welcome to maybe point that out more particularly in the field, and we could address it.
I think looking
Thank
at it today, it was backfilled.
Yeah,
But yeah.
It could have been the angle of the photo as well, but
yeah.
I just saw some kind of hanging asphalt there. So thank you.
Yep.
All right, are there other questions for either Steve or the architectural team? Okay, then Adam, you have a few more things to talk about?
The only things I'll add, and I'll keep it brief, is that the task moving forward, much as Steve and Richard alluded to, is less about raw completion of work and a missing generator, or with the exception of the gym, whole scopes of work that need to be complete. But rather it's largely an assurance that the critical components have been met, installed, certified, and are acceptable. The two portions of that are, one, satisfying the requirements of the building official. The building official has provided some reports, but as I sit here, I don't have the list of items that need to be completed yet. Or confirmed that is the extensive list of items. So that's something to be clarified and confirmed. I know that Newfield has been working on addressing those items rapidly as they've been coming up, but there needs to be an understanding of what needs to be done in order for his criteria to be satisfied. And so that solves it from the code perspective. And then from just the project completion perspective is Richard and his team's list. And so there was a list issued today. I believe there's still some outstanding information forthcoming about the roof and some of these other areas. But largely it's a communication, information, and documentation exercise to get us to substantial completion. And even though the building and the work might be done, there's all the attendant paperwork to ensure that it's documented that it's done and no one can go back after the fact and claim otherwise. Because once substantial completion hit, that's a major project milestone, and a lot changes, and responsibilities change, and liabilities change. So that's why it's not just as simple as the work being done. Okay, great, everyone shake hands and move on. There's a listed process throughout the specifications and making sure it's on the same page. So that's just to keep in mind as to where we're at in terms of the overall progress of the building versus progress of the project. Any questions on that? Otherwise, we can go on to the PCOs and the invoices at Randy's pleasure.
Chris, go ahead.
Richard, I wasn't clear when you said about what is your document called? It's like a certificate of completion?
It's called a certificate of substantial completion,
Okay.
which very simply means, according to AIA language, when the facility is suitable to be used by the owners for its intended purpose.
And that's determined by you and Jeff?
That is determined by me. However, there is a project closeout document as well that lists a whole bunch of things that need to be submitted, a lot of paperwork. So even though the building is ready for occupancy pretty soon, I predict, we just need to make sure that all that paperwork is done.
We're going to hold your prediction, hold you to that prediction, to being ready. Anyway, I was just wondering, it sounded before like you just mentioned paperwork. So it sounded to me before as if you also are waiting on the building inspector.
I am, yes.
So you wait till he says it's okay and then you say it's okay?
Well, it's a chicken and egg problem.
That's what I'm wondering.
So when I spoke with the building official, he said one of the items he's waiting for is the architect's certificate of substantial completion.
Okay.
So who goes first? I'm willing to meet with him. And just as Adam said, we need a list from the building official, exactly what he's looking for, what needs to be done. One thing that he mentioned in my conversation with him is that the property needs to have a sign along the road that has the street address on it. This is not a building code issue. It's a town ordinance issue, apparently, which I was completely unaware of. So he's looking for something. It could be a piece of wood that has numbers on it. As simple as that. So the signage is not part of Newfield's work. So it's unfair to hold that CO up because of that one particular item. He may have other items as well, but there may need to be a temporary sign installed along the road to meet the town's ordinance requirements, for example. I want to know what else is on this.
On his list, the building official's list.
Yes.
Be nice to put that on that oversized sign we put up or putting up.
Chris and Richard, this morning we forwarded, we had 10 interim inspection reports from December 5th through December 22nd that the building official had given us as far as the things that he saw as deficiencies. We've responded to those reports, and I think the guys forwarded it to Adam, Scott, Joe, and I could have Ben send them to you. So at least you can get an understanding of the things that he's looking for in his report.
Yeah, I did see some of that today, and I could see
you get
that.
those?
Well, I don't know if I got them all. I got some stuff today, and it did list, and he had photographs in that document that were done by the building official, and it did indicate whether items were finished or addressed or in process. I did see that.
There was another item in the report that we got for this meeting, and it's in the IT closet where there's not enough access to some of the Sonatrol equipment. How is that being resolved? Is it being resolved? I don't know, whoever, Steve, I don't know if you would have an answer, or Jeff, or Richard, what are we doing there?
Oh, I reached out to Craig Raza this morning with photos that I took at the last OAC meeting. So he is gonna get out there and double check and triple check what's going on. I mean, it might be an issue where the units that are on the rack just might need to be lowered to get the door to open for the Sonatrol. I believe it is behind there, but I want him to look at everything because I did notice a pump that had a wire that wasn't connected, but I think they may have connected that. So I just want them to go out and double check everything in that room. Not only that, but just make sure everything, so we don't get asked to come back again and again. So he's aware of that. He's gonna send either him or Brian Krasko out there to double check and triple check, but it might be simply just moving some of those units on the rack to the next level, because the entire lower 4 feet is completely open and they chose to put them, 5 feet or 4 feet above, and that happens to be right where the Sonatrol panel is. So it may be an issue that can be resolved.
Well, I hope it can be resolved, but I'm just thinking, this is something the building official is going to have some particular needs on, right? Because there's access is required. Chris, you're shaking your head no? I thought he mentioned it.
Well- Well, it's not a building thing per se unless it, bridges the door. But I guess to that point, I'm interested in the building official's stuff that he has to say, but I'm really interested in Jeff's list, his punch list that he's been doing all along, that looks at all the nuts and bolts of everything. And I want to make sure all that's done too. I mean, it might not be a building official kind of thing.
Yeah,
You're correct, and that's one of the things I alluded to, all of the site observations that Jeff had done. Some of them are aesthetic. Some things are, for example, misaligned. And Jeff rightfully pointed out that there's a value to that. But how do you express that value in dollars and cents is the difficulty we have. So we have to come to some understanding about that. And that's going to take more conversations with Newfield.
As far as like them dealing with the items that I'm pointing out, the walkthrough today, I noticed there was a number of things like dents in the zinc that have been taken care of. So I think the next time I'm there, I'll walk through with, well, I have to talk to Richard about this. When our next final walkthrough, or if any, that we do to just make sure that all this stuff has been addressed. So I guess that's the next question.
Well, there is, as part of closeout, a final walkthrough, once the punch list has been established, to confirm all the punch list items are complete before the building is over. So there is that end state, but I think to Richard and Jeff's point, identifying when the punch list is complete is an item we need to resolve.
I mean, overall, Chris McNamara, walking through today, I think all of us are in agreement that the building is close. Aesthetically, architecturally, everything. It's just my only concern is I want to make sure the building inspector gets his things taken care of, and I want to make sure our mechanical, electrical, fire protection, plumbing guys get all their items taken care of so the building works properly. That's my concern at this point.
Thank you,
Okay.
Jeff.
Okay. I think last item before we move on to the procurement items and PCOs. There is some work that Peter's asking for the bathrooms, which we talked about at length, in terms of providing some separate gender areas. There's no details that have been really worked out yet, but as far as I know, Richard, but there is at least a question of or consideration of what sort of modifications might happen to those bathrooms.
No, we did issue, Richard, per both of our directions. We issued the first PR, which was going to be an actual wall with ceramic tile on the wall. But then since then, Peter had requested to do a partition. So I revised that proposal request or sent an additional one that asked them to price, Newfield to price out just using a toilet partition element in there with a continuous no peak sort of edge on there. So we do have PRs out to Newfield for pricing. Now, I don't know if that is still going to be the case or if we're going to do that after the fact with the
Well,
town.
I think some of those details need to be worked out yet, but I think just in terms of a heads up to the committee as a general what's going on sort of a thing is all we want to accomplish today.
Right, right. Well, first of all, I just want to thank everyone for meeting this week. You are to be commended. This is a hardworking group. And for the building committee in particular, the walkthrough today was amazing. Design and construction truly has worked hard. You would be very proud of this building. It looks amazing. And so just a lot of gratitude. We are indeed close. There have been conversations in the community about bathrooms, and I applaud the building committee for being very forward thinking and wanting to make sure that all students are safe, that they have a place where they can use the restroom that aligns to their identity. And so as we were looking at the design of the bathrooms, these are the grades 1, 2, 3, and 4 areas. Richard and Jeff have talked about the fact that there was a design element where we could easily put a divider so that the 6 toilet rooms would actually become 3 and 3. Both sides have an ADA stall along with 2 others. This would give us an option to use these bathrooms as gender specific restrooms, along with the idea of identifying unisex, non-gender specific single-use bathrooms in each area for student use. Having talked to Lauren Rodriguez, the principal, Randy, Kathy Ward, and again, just engaging the community, we want to make sure that number one, we're not talking about bathrooms when we open up this amazing building. And number two, that every student feels that they are recognized, that they have a place to go, and that the families understand. So I think the design element was forward thinking. I think the reality is we need some flexibility to allow perhaps more of a gender specific gang style bathroom. But I want to applaud the design of it because it really is an amazing feature that will be efficient, safe, and allow students to quickly access those areas. But the key here would be to ensure that all students have a place to go and that we would identify a single use restroom in each area that would be signed appropriately and that would be open for students who would like to use the single stall or single use bathroom.
Okay, so there's more information that would be coming on that. I don't know if there's questions that anyone has or comments. Chris McNamara.
I thought we were looking at floor to ceiling walls throughout, not going back to this idea of gender specific bathrooms.
So that the design is not actually floor to ceiling. It is close to the floor and most of the way up to the ceiling. But they are cubicles rather than individual rooms, which I think is part of the issue that Peter's been dealing with.
Yeah, I think that what we had in our mind may have been a little bit different than the actual construction and final product of it. They are not stalls in the traditional sense. They provide a lot of safety, security, but they're not the floor to ceiling walls that would make somebody feel like they're in a single use bathroom versus in a, and again, I'm going to use gang style, but clearly this is not a traditional gang style bathroom, but there are, 6 toilet rooms next to each other. Could potentially someone try to look over the partitions? Perhaps. And again, having community members start to hear about this feature, we want to make sure that all children have a place that they feel safe, that their families feel safe utilizing. And so I think the workaround, just short of removing and rebuilding, which I don't think is a possibility at this point, is to really think about the generous amount of single-use adult bathrooms. There's 2 in each area. So taking one of those and putting appropriate signage. So a student, instead of using the grade level area bathroom, could easily just pivot and walk down the hallway to the single-use bathroom.
I'll just add one thing, Peter and Steve. There was a PR that went out for a while that was approved and we paid for it. The toilet partitions in those gang toilets right now, what's supposedly coming is taller doors and taller partitions. So we're going to be at 6'4", which is taller than what's in there right now. So we're still waiting for that. We signed off on it. We paid for it. They're coming. They just have not been installed. The other issue is what Peter is referring to is the partition that separates 3 side versus the other 3 sides. So they cannot connect behind the sink. And that's what we're talking about as far as the partition, whether Newfield's going to do that. I wrote a PR to get pricing or whether the town's going to do that after.
And I just want to add, the final decision to label them has not been made. However, having the partition would allow us to quickly pivot once we see the taller walls and partitions go in. I think it's a nice safety feature anyway to prevent students from making a lap through the area. And so hopefully when the partition comes in and the taller one comes in, we do some more final walkthroughs. Lauren has a chance to bring some staff members. We'll make a final determination, but putting the partition means that we can quickly pivot without losing time. It's just a matter of a sign.
And one other thing I'll add to that, that early on, the building inspector did have a comment on the gender neutral gang toilets. So in order to cover that moving forward, we had additional signage made. So there are signs for each of those that says boys and girls.
So what I suggest, and so this is just kind of a heads up at this point, but I would suggest, I'll just say my comment and then I'll get to Rich. I would suggest that you come out and look at the bathrooms and kind of see what you think. That's something you can do, between now and when the taller partitions come in. So, Rich, go ahead.
Peter, from what I'm hearing you say, it sounds like we might be losing a staff bathroom. I'm very concerned about that. I feel like right now it's always difficult for staff members to find a bathroom to use because at a grade level, we all have the same common planning time. We're all trying to find a bathroom to use at any one point. So I'm concerned about the idea of losing a staff bathroom to turn it into a student bathroom.
I hear you, Rich, and certainly having lived the Goodwin experience with one single-use stall, I can appreciate that. When Laura and I walked through the building, there are quite a few single-use adult bathrooms. And so I don't think that's going to be a problem. And obviously, when grade levels are on their prep periods, their schedules are different and staggered. So I don't think there's going to be any waiting line for an adult bathroom. There's plenty of them around the building. So we'll strategically put them in places where we take that into consideration.
Okay, so something to consider, I guess, going
I
forward.
just want to make one more comment.
Go ahead, Chris.
This is something I understand, or as you've said, Peter, I hear you, as I'm sure you've had to say repeatedly to members of the public. This is something that we discussed at length as a committee. And it's something that we did do, I believe, thoughtfully. And I think it's it would be the issue about which we spoke for the longest period of time and discussed it for the longest period of time, anything we've talked about. shape of the building, even frankly, as an individual topic, location of the building. And I'm very disappointed to have this feel like disappear, especially when no one has come to us as a building committee to talk about their concerns, and we've been doing this for a long time. I would propose, I'd like to have us think about kind of a half measure, and that would be to do the partitions between the 3 and 3 in the 3rd and 4th grade classrooms, and not do it in the 1st and 2nd grade classrooms. And if you take the next step further and you say, well, wait a minute, we don't have identified bathrooms in the kindergarten and pre-K. How could we possibly have done that? How could we ever have thought that that was okay to do? And then when a child is now in 1st grade, it's extremely important. It must happen. So anyhow, I just, again, want to express my frustration about it. I have a lot of feeling that this ship is pulling away from the dock. I just hope that there's still some sort of a line attached to it.
Mary, and then Chris McNamara.
Steve, Chris, my head's spinning a little bit here. Thank you. And I completely agree with everything you just said. We did make a very thoughtful decision about this. And I couldn't agree with you more that in all of these many months that plans have been out, no one has ever come before this committee and said that the plan for this was problematic, therefore denying us any opportunity not only to hear those concerns, but to make any changes. And I do feel now that it's kind of been shifted away from our purview. I don't know that we have any say anymore, is kind of how I'm feeling right now. And that does feel very frustrating after the time and the effort we put into it. Really trying to be advocates for those kids who we didn't want kids to feel different. And so by saying you're going to go, you choose to go to that single use stall, that begins to create difference. And that is exactly what I feel we were trying to avoid. So.
Okay, Chris McNamara, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And not to drag out the bathroom conversation even more than we already have. I totally agree with what's been said and feel somewhat left out of this conversation if it was so critical. I understand there's water lines, there's ventilation issues into making the full wall, but those can all be overcome. Nothing that has been said is, oh, well, we can't do anything about that. There's tons of ways to make ventilation for each compartment happen that is somewhat economical. And it has to have a will to want to do it. And we had the will to design it that way originally. And I think we should continue with that will to go forward, because doing it differently than we had decided is, I don't think, a good idea.
Okay, and then Tony.
I may have missed something somewhere along the line, but where does the initial objection to the non-gendered bathroom come from? The actual objection, not the hypotheticals.
Well, so I can comment on that. Part of my entry plan was to engage the community in many different conversations. Quickly, the bathroom became the conversation. And over the course of the fall, I've met with many, many families who have expressed a concern about it. They feel that they didn't know anything about this. And I want to make sure that the building committee understands that personally, I applaud you. I want this more than you can imagine. But I also, meeting with families who have strict beliefs that are rooted in their faith, without being able to see the bathrooms, they too need to see themselves in the bathroom in the school. And our conversations really started with what I heard from the building committee and from TSKP was that the bathrooms were designed that should we need to do this, we could go that route. So it felt to me that there had been some conversation. I had not attended any of those meetings, but reflecting with Principal Rodriguez, with Kathy Ward from the board, with Randy, I want to make sure that when families walk through the school, that they're talking about the amazing parts of this building and that they're not hung up on the fact that their child is being forced. And that doesn't sound right, but that's the way they're going to see it, to go to a non-gender specific bathroom that looks more like stalls. And so Randy had mentioned that I think, and I agree, going to see the bathrooms is really important for you to see them. I don't think they are what you thought they were going to be. In my mind, and I had been telling families that I thought it was going to be like what I've seen in airports, where they're really quiet and they go all the way to the ceiling, and they're not like that. They look like stalls, however, safer because they're taller, they go lower to the ground, you can't crawl underneath it. But it's not exactly what I had anticipated seeing. And, to the point that you made that people have not come to the building committee, they haven't known about it. And so, it's probably not common sense that a family go to the school building committee versus going to see the superintendent or the principal about this. And I think that we just have to be mindful that the proposed solution is far better than what we're doing now, right? Because right now, the only option is to go to the nurse's office. And so I think it's a win-win situation by one, putting some divider, not changing any of the signs just yet, but allow us to see that, to see what it looks like, and allow the school building committee to see it. But ultimately, I'm on the hook for answering to the families about how we use the building. And so in the end, I have to make sure that all families feel safe, that they feel like there's an appropriate place for the child to use the bathroom.
I hate to do this, but I told you so. I said, when I first came onto this committee, we were discussing this. I said, the minute this gets out there, you're going to have a political uproar. And unfortunately, it's going to turn into a political uproar because it's going to put conservative, evangelical Christians against those liberals who think they can force their gender neutral beliefs on my kid. And I'm not saying that I agree with that in any stretch of the imagination, except to say that there are more of them than there are of us. This is a liberal community, absolutely, but I think there are more people who are going to go up in flames over the idea of sharing bathrooms than there are people who are going to go up in flames about having traditional bathrooms. I wish this weren't so, but I really do believe that we cannot meet our community fairly by forcing these families into a situation where they're going to be uncomfortable every single day.
I just want to add, it's more than just that right-wing evangelical group. We are a diverse community that has many different faiths and religions.
All right.
And so I just want to caution us that there are many families who are not Christian who have concerns about this. And so, but I agree, Tony, that I feel like this could be the thing that people continue to talk about. And when we see other districts go through controversial issues, we know that the political sphere right now is that people push into a community to support a polarized side. And again, that this becomes the thing that holds us up rather than opening a building and utilizing it as a school and having kids play and learn and having teachers use the school. So I understand the concern, and I would just ask that the building committee, one, takes a look at the bathrooms. Number two, the partition would not change at this point in time the design of gender neutral bathrooms, but would give us that option. And to be honest with you, that's an operational piece of the building that could or could not, happen with or without the building committee's blessing. And I don't say that to dismiss your concerns, but just understand that at some point we have to move in and use the building. And to really want to make sure that people are talking about the design of the building in a positive sense, I want to get ahead of this.
Okay, Chris McNamara.
Thank you, Randy. Final comment from me. Had the bathrooms been built the way we had thought that they were going to be built, then having banks of restrooms on each wing would not be anything that anyone would have any issue of. Unfortunately, what we thought was happening did not happen, and they were not individual floor to ceiling closable door areas. And because that was the image that I had. And that, if we could do that, would be what we need to do, because banks of restrooms, there's nothing threatening about that for any gender. Thank you.
Okay, what I suggest then, think about it, come see the school, come see the current setup. And we'll come back with proposals later. Okay, anything else, Adam, that you have? Are we ready to move on?
No, not for me. I think we can move on to
Okay.
PCOs.
Okay, then if the committee's ready, we can move on then to the PCO and procurement items.
Okay, I will share my screen here. So just to start, there's no action needed on this first item. It's just a FYI to the committee. This was approved through the expedited approval, Randy, Ryan, Peter subcommittee. It was an extension to the town's builders risk policy through January in light of the change in substantial completion. So if need be, we'll continue to extend it. However, this was just to ensure that the town's insurance didn't lapse due to a technicality on dates. So that's an FYI. This next item is something that's up for a vote. It's not a PCO. This is a proposal from Langen. They had done our hazardous materials asbestos monitoring while we were in construction and the original assessment. This is something that was requested through the coordination with town facilities. I don't know if Alan or Bill are on the line here. But effectively, it's for a new asbestos management plan. Obviously, there's no asbestos specified to be within the building per se. But my understanding from the communication with facilities is that this plan is something that's still developed as part of new buildings for items that might happen moving forward in case there's a new piece of equipment or something to that effect. So that's what this proposal is for, and facilities has reviewed it and they agreed with the scope. Any questions on this? There's a draft motion for it in the packets.
I do.
Go ahead, Chris.
This, if we don't have anything on hand and this kind of thing happens where, as you just said, Adam, something gets brought to the building, it seems to me this is a total boilerplate plan that we shouldn't have to go out and pay $2,400 for. It's got to have happened in other districts that you guys have worked in, that TSKP has worked in, and I think we ought to be able to use one of those plans. I don't think we need our own because it has our name on it. If it's simply a matter of process, you stop at stop signs, you go at green lights. It's got to be pretty simple. Again, if we don't have any asbestos.
My understanding is that this was originally something that the town was intending to produce itself, but then could not. To be honest, I don't have the details behind that. It was just like I said, a request that came through facilities there.
I mean, I would be curious to know what the worry is that warrants it. And again, why Coventry doesn't have one that we could use and that made sense for us as well.
I don't think Alan or Bill are on the line to address.
No. Adam, is there a time-sensitive nature to this?
I don't believe so, in the sense of this week versus the next committee meeting. I believe it's on the time frame of actually having the building with students in there. So if there's additional information that the committee wanted from Alan or Bill, I think we could probably push if that's the desire.
I mean, it seems to me I would like to hear from them. And I don't know, Richard or Jeff, if this is something you've come across before.
Yes, we have. Asbestos management plans are typically on file with facilities. In case anybody comes in to do work on the facility, they will ask, is there any asbestos in the building? And they can be shown the plan, asbestos management plan, whether there's any asbestos in the building. But it does need to be done by someone who knows enough about the facility. Usually they ask the architect for some certification that there's no asbestos containing product that's been specified for the building. So that will be in the file. For example, if it were an old building, then there may have been an asbestos inspection, and any present asbestos in the building would be identified so that a worker who's coming in to work on the building won't drill into certain ceilings or walls, for example. That's what it is. That's an asbestos management plan that identifies the presence of asbestos and where it may be. So this is not an issue for CO or Newfield's work. It's outside Newfield's work. It can follow later.
Okay, even for a brand new building, no asbestos. I mean, the plan seems like it'd be pretty simple.
I think it will be, but it sounds like your facilities department wants to make sure they have something in their files, just to make sure that they're properly notifying future workers in the building.
Okay, so a couple of options here for the committee. I mean, someone can make a motion to approve this, and we can take a vote. Or if you would prefer, we could have Alan or Bill speak about it at our next meeting.
Yeah, I'd like to move whatever the term would be, table it or give
Yeah,
it
we
more
can,
time.
I guess that would be the motion, be to table it till the next meeting.
And I'd be curious to have them arrive with other information, as in what are some other alternatives? Can we get something from somebody else? I imagine that Richard, Jeff, and Tai-Soo Kim would all be willing to sign something that says, we know of no asbestos specified. or included in this building, I wouldn't be surprised if Steve and Brian would be happy to do the same thing. But maybe that's not enough.
Yeah, I have made those kinds of certifications in the past.
Okay, Chris McNamara.
Yeah, we have as well.
Oh, and Steve says
Yeah,
they have as well.
Great. And that's what I was asking. Well, we have them right here. If they're able to make that, then I'm comfortable saying we don't need to table this. We can just not vote
But
for it.
we
So-
could simply, we can just simply not vote on it. Tony, you have a comment?
Are there any legal requirements for this?
That was my understanding, and my understanding was this was separate from the Richard letter, which was also came up in some of the discussions with Alan. So this appeared to be in addition to, not a replacement of a Richard letter or similar.
What kind of letter?
I don't know the answer to this question, but I'm going to make a guess that you're really paying to have a series of documents in a file that will hold up in case there is some kind of a lawsuit. And my guess is they're going to be these kinds of legal documents are often lifted from neighboring or other relevant sources. So I think that's basically part of the work. What you're really paying for is somebody to assemble a legal set of documents that will hold up in court. And for that reason, I would support voting for this project, this proposal at this time.
Okay,
But didn't we just hear that the architect has provided these in the past, and so has the general contractor, and those would be legally binding as well?
We've also
a
learned
nexus.
that they're separate from, they may be the backup for this document.
No,
rather
that is correct. This kind of a document, an asbestos management plan, is a statement from an environmental scientist or a registered and licensed environmental professional, which is what an LEP is. That's what Langen is performing the service in the past. They did the abatement and demolition plans, for example, for the old Southeast School on this project. So that licensed environmental professional will be the author of that asbestos management plan. My letter will just be an exhibit as part of that document.
okay, so Tony, do you want to make a motion then?
Chris,
Oh,
has
oh,
Chris
oh.
Kiefner already made a motion?
I moved to table it. We get more
Chris did.
information.
Oh, is there,
Chris did make
okay,
a
there's a
motion
motion
to
to
table it.
table. Is there,
Find out what the source is, the need, where the need's coming from. Is it an insurance need? Is it where's the need? And that's one. And the second question is, can we use the format that Coventry has used, or that any number of other 169 towns and however many districts there are have used?
I second his motion.
Thank you.
okay, we have this is a second to a motion to table. Doesn't mean that we would be rejecting it, but we could bring it back at a later meeting to discuss. So all in favor of the motion to table, please indicate.
Aye.
I said Mary, Chris Kiefner, and Chris
Kathy
McNamara.
says in favor as well. And Kathy Ward.
Kathy,
She can't undo her mute.
Chris, Mary. Okay, that's 4. So then all opposed, please indicate. 1, 2. And then 3 opposed. So the motion to table passes. We will try to get that information that was requested for the next meeting.
Excuse me, I have Tony and Rich opposed. Who is the third?
I will also vote no.
Okay.
Okay. All right, then that brings us to a PCO.
Yes. I'm sharing my screen. So the Lone Newfield PCO is PCO 139. This is for electrical work and the attendant operator, elevator operator from Kone in the elevator shaft. This is a portion of one of the purchase requests that was made. Essentially, this was for some additional circuitry that was discovered as part of the inspections where there was some lighting and things and receptacles that were on common circuits but needed to split out into separate circuits to align with code, is my understanding. Richard,
Yes, sir.
do you want to add on to that?
No, I think you're correct on that.
This was required by the state inspector.
Yeah, the inspector came through and noticed it, so we had to do it for the inspection.
Given that it's required by code, how do you classify this, Adam?
Unless it was one of these items that was a code ambiguity, like the drywall at the top of the shaft, where there was some back and forth with the state. Unless it's in that canon, then it would be an error of omission.
Okay, is there a motion to approve PCO 139? Chris McNamee,
I move that we approve.
okay, PCO 139,
Thank you.
second? Tony, thank you. All in favor, please indicate.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed or abstentions? Okay, so that
Kathy
passes.
says she's in favor.
Okay, thank you. Then that brings us to the pay app.
And so this month's pay application or invoice packet rather, total of 1.521 million, including Newfield's pay application 19 for just over 1.4 million. The items that I would put out to note in this this invoice packet, there were a number of invoices from the town's existing accounts that were purchased. Two of them, the committee saw previously with some of the IT work that Jamie, or IT equipment that Jamie was procuring as part of some of his last mile work. Those were for Amazon and CDW. And there were also three invoices here for through town facilities, through Adform, and then two through electric wholesalers for some of the soap dispensers and hand dryer equipment that the town is procuring. And so those were purchased through the town's existing accounts and purchase cards and things were being submitted here as part of, to be included as part of the project funds.
Okay.
What is Collier's getting reimbursed for $612? I'm not used to seeing those reimbursements. I may have missed them, but
Yeah, they've been on all these
Yeah.
these applications. This is for mileage.
mileage.
Okay, any other questions? And is there a motion to approve these invoices and pay app? Mary?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to approve the invoice packet dated today, December 29th, 2022, including invoices from Adform, AET, Amazon, BVH, CES, CDW, Colliers Project Leaders, Electric Wholesalers, Hoffman Architects, IMTL, MHAI, Red Thread, WB Meyer, and Weston and Sampson in the amount of $89,926.19. And Newfield's application for payment number 19 in the amount of $1,431,294.81 for a total approval of $1,521,221.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second? Chris McNamee?
Second,
Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion, please indicate.
Aye.
Any opposed or abstentions?
Kathy's in favor.
All right. That then brings us to the end of our agenda and I would accept a
Before we do
motion
that, Randy, Al has been on and Al often gives a little highlight tour or a visual look at things. I wonder if he's got anything that I've been to the building, but I don't know that other members have, and it's often very engaging what he has to show and say.
Al, do you have pictures to show?
I don't, unfortunately, I haven't been on site in over a week. I've been homesick.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, for the next meeting, we'll look forward to lots of pictures. Then with that, I would accept a motion to
I'll move
adjourn.
we adjourn.
Thank you, Chris. Is there a second? Chris McNamee. And then with that, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Randy.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.